we think that all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did this flip and I thought, wait a minute, she's not out to get me. She's miserable. And my head did a 180-degree turn and I never looked back. It was the change that it was monumental, and it meant a completely different relationship that I had with her. And it's been great ever since. I mean, certainly she was so intense, you know, she was just pushing me all the time, but I understood her now. I got it. I didn't take it personally anymore. And so I could help her. And
that's right there, Bonnie, I think is such a pivotal point for parents to hear, because a lot of parents think, you are making me miserable. You are making me late. You're doing this on purpose. You are trying to drive me insane. And it all centered on the child is doing something to me, as opposed to recognizing that the child is struggling with something and really, without the right language, asking for help.
Exactly. And when I looked at her and thought, she's out to get me, it was totally all about me. Yeah. What she was doing to me, how she was inconveniencing my morning, what I had to do. Did I have to change schools? And when I made that flip and I thought, she's miserable, my anger flipped to compassion. And it became about her, how I could help her, what I could do for her. We had the most wonderful few moments after that where I just sat down on the floor. I pulled her onto my lap. I just said, you really don't want to go to school this morning, do you? And she said, no, because she doesn't know what's going on yet. And I said, and you didn't want to get out of your cozy warm bed and your cozy warm pajamas and put on your cold scratchy clothes? And she said, no. And then I said, and you don't want to leave home and have to say goodbye to me. And she melted into my body. She just cried and melted, and it was like the heavens opened up. and it was, it must have felt to her like, this is the first moment you have understood me. And then I said, you know what? And she said, what? And I said, I hate mornings too. She said, you do? I said, yes, I hate it when that alarm goes off and I have to get out of my cozy warm bed and put my feet on the cold floor. Really? And now we're like blood sisters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just changed everything.
That's absolutely beautiful. And I think for me, that's a key point, because it's not just kids, it's all of us. We just want to feel like we've been heard and we've been seen.
Yes.
And I think our kids rarely get the opportunity to feel that, because we're so caught up in our own agenda.
Absolutely. And what our kids should be doing. And they're not meeting up to this standard or expectation. And what's wrong with that? And so we're all focused on doing, instead of just being, right?
So earlier on, you mentioned that sometimes we can get caught in a cycle of saying, why do I have to yell at you 10 times before you would act? And early in my parenting, I fell into that trap where I would say the same thing, especially around bath time: get in the bath, and then I find myself yelling. And you talk about a concept called parent deafness.
Mhm.
that I think I clearly was falling in the trap of. And I just wanted us to explore what parent deafness is and what really causes it.
Well, it also comes back to when parents say, my son just won't listen to me. And I often say it's because they don't like what they're hearing. So when we yell 10 times, when we tell them over and over and over again something they already know,
Mm.
it's whether they want to do it or not is a separate thing, but we tell them again and again and again, don't hit your brother. There's no hitting in this family. We don't say things like that, ad nauseum, and they know it, and they just tune us out
Mm.
because we're not talking to them, we're talking at them. And nobody likes to be talked at. I mean, imagine for any of your listeners, if you're in the office and your boss comes in and just starts yelling at you the same thing over and over again. I need that report. I need that report. Hurry up. When are you going to get me that report? I've got to have that report on my desk. Blah, 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 blah. You know the report is due. It's not going to help you get it done any quicker if he would just leave you alone. I mean, it's, we just, and especially with our children, we don't trust them. We don't trust that they will do the right thing unless we're at them all the time, unless we stay on them. And we try to control their every move. We try to control how they think and how they feel and how they behave, none of which we have any control over. But we keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and they absolutely tune out because we're not listening to them. We're not trusting them. We're not hearing them. And if you can just drop down into the moment and say, you are not getting to your bath.
Mm.
You just don't want to have a bath tonight, do you? And or like with Molly, you don't want to go to school today, do you? It's like, now we're talking, right? Now we're talking. This is the kind of language your child can hear. When you say, you're resisting having a bath, you just really wish you didn't have to have a bath tonight, right? And then you've got something going on.
I think you touched on it when you said we don't trust that they will do it. And I think you can see it very differently with different stages of development. Like we all trust our kids will learn to walk.
Right.
So when they're stumbling along, we don't feel like we have to walk for them. We don't micromanage the walking. We just
No problem.
they'll get it. They'll stumble, they'll fall. We pick them up, dust them off, tell them they're okay, and they can try again, and we let them try again. When it comes to no sense of trust, and there's no room for mistakes either. There's no room for stumbling and falling. So when a child behaves in an inappropriate way because they've been overrun by their emotions, we don't even realize that we're doing the same when we react.
When we're overrun by our emotions.
There's no consideration that we're doing the same, but what we're saying is, hey, we need to stamp this out. You don't get to behave that way.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You've got to do it right.
Yes.
Pay no attention to me, but you've got to do it right.
Let's dive deeper in talking about some of those things that trigger us. So in your book, you mention 8 different sort of key ways that most of us get triggered. And I don't think we have time to cover all 8. So again, I will tell every parent, dive deeply, grab this book. I think every parent should leave the hospital with a newborn in one hand and this book in the other. So everybody needs to have a copy. But I wanted to touch on, I wanted to touch on 3 of them that I think are probably most common. So the first one I wanted you to touch on, just to kind of describe for us what is behind that trigger and how does it make us actually respond or react. The first one was control button.
Well, the control button is something that so many, as you picked a good one. It is what we were just saying. You know, we want to control our children to do what we tell them to do because we think it's our job. So that's current time. It's my job because our parenting culture tells us we as parents are supposed to have the answers. We are supposed to bring our children up to be good citizens, right? To be who we want them to, they should be. So we're always getting involved in every aspect of their behavior and what they're doing. So we're trying, it's like we're moving pawns around on a chessboard, and we're trying desperately to get them to do what they're supposed to do. Now, add to that, when I felt controlled as a child and I could not do what I wanted to do, or that was my perception as a child. I never got to do what I wanted to do, but I had to always do what somebody else told me to do. Then though all of those old emotional triggers get, get pushed on top of it, when that child I'm trying to control isn't doing what I say. And it's like, I wasn't controlled as a child, and now I have to control. I have to do it the way, it's so multi-layered. I have to do it the way my parent was doing it, and also I'm compensating for not having control as a child. And it also might be a child who had very unpredictable parents, possibly alcoholics, and you never knew what to expect. And so you as the child had to take on a lot of control, right? I had to find, if I'm the child in this scenario, I have to find places where I have control, because I have no control over what my parents are doing or being like. And so then that control gets developed as a young child, and then I know that I have to keep controlling my world, otherwise everything falls apart.
Okay. And usually the response when that button gets pushed is anger.
Yes. And under anger is always fear. And it's fear that I'm not going to get what I want. Nobody's going to like me or approve of me, or fear that my child is going to turn out to never listen to anybody, to have no control, to be just out of control all the time. Our fears just go crazy.
Like a movie, horror movie, quickly in seconds.
Yes, yes, yes.
Let's talk about the appreciation button.
A very good one. So again, multi-layered. So the appreciation button is when I do and do and do and do and do and do for my child. I buy, I sign up for all these programs. I am this wonderful mother who is giving my child every opportunity I can. And what do I get for it? You're stupid. I hate you. I don't have to do what you tell me to do. You're not the boss of me. And so that appreciation button goes off, because look at all I am doing for you, and you have no gratitude. You have no appreciation. And then, of course, the multi-layers of that go back to either I had to appreciate and show gratitude for everything my parent did because my parent had an appreciation button, or nobody paid any attention to me. I worked really hard in school. I got good grades, maybe. I was the star athlete. I was the long distance runner. Who knows? I became a doctor or whatever. Nobody's appreciating me. I might have a parent who is one of those parents who isn't able to say, I love you, or I'm sorry, or you're wonderful, or, a narcissistic parent. And so you learn all of these things about yourself. And then if you're not appreciated as a child, and now here you are as a parent doing all this for your child, and your child isn't appreciating you, it just is all over again. It just gets compounded. And there are two things I want to say about this. One is that when that appreciation button goes off, it means we don't really understand child development, and we don't understand that a young egocentric child, naturally egocentric child, does not have the ability, the brain width, the bandwidth to see what's going on, to appreciate what you're doing as a parent and saying, oh, thanks, Mom, for signing me up for soccer. Thanks so much for that new shirt you bought me. Little children don't have that ability to get out of themselves like that. They take us for granted, and in a very good way, they take us for granted. If they can take us for granted, it's a really lucky thing for that child. Because, like, for instance, that control button adult, if you're in a home where there is alcoholism, where there is mental illness, where there is something very serious going on, then you can't take your parents for granted. You don't know what's going to come. You don't know when they're going to yell at you. You don't know when you're going to be given something. You don't know what's going on. So when children can take their parents for granted, it's really quite a wonderful thing. So that's one thing.
I know a lot of moms are not going to say, I feel that that's a wonderful thing.
Right, I know. So the other thing that must go along with that is taking care of yourself as a parent. Because so many of us expect that our children are going to feed us what we need. So many of us have this wonderful idyllic picture of our children, and we have those moments where they throw their arms around us and say, you're the best mommy in the whole world. I love you. I love you. I love you. And the next minute, they're screaming at us and saying, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. So we as parents, and especially mothers, I will say this, especially mothers, because generally, not always, it's mothers who are there in the trenches, who are there day in and day out, and mothers are the ones that children naturally dump their emotional garbage on, right? So we must take care of ourselves. We have to make sure our cup is filled up, if not every day, at least every week. Because if we're depleted, if we come way down the list, on the list of priorities, then we're not going to be a good model for our children. And if we don't work on ourselves, if we don't do the things that we love to do, and I know when our children are young, time is of the essence, but it is as important as taking care of your child. So one of the problems I have with so many parenting programs or theories or books or whatever is that they're all about putting the child's needs very, very high. And they don't talk about balancing. And my work is all about balancing. Nobody in the family, nobody's needs or wants are any more or any less important than anyone else's. And if you don't take care of your needs and wants, you are not going to be in a good position to take care of your child's, you know? We've got to realize this. We all know what we're like when the end of the day comes and we're spent and we've been, bleh, everything is clawing at us. But we don't realize that we have to take care of ourselves.
I love that, Bunny. And I just want to talk about how appreciation, that button spills over in my own life. And I can see it as a trend all the way back for a few generations. For me, when that appreciation button gets pushed, what comes out is not anger, but it's like a guilt trip. Do you know what
Yes.
I had when I was a child? Do you know how
Right.
lucky you are?
Yep. Yep. What do you mean you never get to do what you want to do? What do you mean? What did we just do yesterday? What did we do this morning? You ungrateful child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
That's
That's
exactly
the
it.
assumption. That's the assumption in there. You ungrateful, unappreciative child.